What's up everybody? Today I've got the new Staccato CS. First off, I want to thank Nick and Kristen for getting this over to me to check this little guy out. I was super excited when I heard the Staccato was coming out with a new gun. I'm a little bit of a Staccato fanboy, so I might be a little biased, but I'm also a little skeptical about this gun. And we're going to get to that in a little bit. First, I kind of want to go into a little bit of a data dump on this. If you want to get to the sexy range stuff, you can skip ahead. I'll have a timestamp down there for that. If you want to hear a little bit more about the stats of this and then comparisons to a C2, Glock 19, that sort of thing, that's what we're going to get into right now while we're in the studio here where it's nice and warm, before we get out to the range where it's freezing because we're in Ohio in December. So let's dig into the Staccato CS stats. All right, I'm gonna read off my notes here. I know it's not super professional, but there's a lot of stuff here that I wanna go through. This is right off their website, but let's start with the price. What does this little guy cost? It's gonna start around $2,500. Yeah, I know, that's a lot, but we're gonna find out kind of why and where that lands within other things here. So, other stats, it has a 3.5-inch bull barrel. Receiver is 70-75 billet precision machined, so we have a nice aluminum receiver there. It does come optic ready. We have a loopholed Delta Point Pro on this guy right now. 4 to 4.5 inch pound aluminum trigger, and you can actually choose, this is different from when I bought my other Staccatos, you can actually choose an aluminum flat face trigger, which I like a lot, and that's what this one is equipped with. All right, let's talk about dimensions. Length is 7.1 inches. Grip width is 1.2. Height, 5.6. Width at the safeties is 1.45. And the capacity of this guy is 16 rounds in the mag. So let's look at where this falls in the lineup. I think it's first important to note where this came from. They got rid of the Staccato C. And I'm gonna throw some dimensions up on the screen here for you so you can see how those compare with this. Some of the key things to note is it went from 8 rounds to 16, so double the capacity right off the bat. So if you have a Staccato C, then there's definitely more of a reason to think about picking up the CS. But what if you have a C2? So this is the situation I'm in. I have a Staccato C2, and this is, I'll be honest, it's my favorite gun, my favorite pistol that I own. I love this gun because it's concealable, carryable, as well as I can go take it to a steel match or USPSA match, shoot with it all weekend, and it's gonna be fine to shoot with. I've not taken this out to the range yet. Like I said, we're gonna be jumping to that a little bit later. So I'll have a little bit more input for you on how shootable I feel like this gun is compared to the C2. When you compare the size of the CS and the C2, you're gonna see there's not a whole lot of difference. And when I first saw the stats online and I was looking at numbers and everything, I'm not sure that I could convince myself to spend another $2,500 or get rid of my favorite gun to go to the CS because those dimensions are so close. So I was really looking forward to getting my hands on this gun so I could really feel what the difference is. My first impressions are this. I can definitely feel a big difference in the grip reduction on this. I can get my hand around it a little bit more, which should turn into a little more control, even though I've never really had an issue or complained too much about the C2 grip. The weight of the CS is 1 pound 8 ounces with a 2-ounce optic on it. The weight of the C2 is 1 pound 12 ounces with a 2-ounce optic on it. So it's a 4-ounce difference. And while that doesn't sound like a ton, you can definitely tell when you're holding these and when you're carrying them, you can feel that difference a little bit more. But how does that compare to some other popular guns? This is a Gen 3 Glock 19, arguably my favorite Glock Gen. I actually like the finger grips on it. I've done a little bit of a reduction here, but then I added an agency magwell on it. So we're gonna call this pretty much stock weight. The Glock 19 with no optic comes in at 1 pound 6 ounces. So it's actually the same as the CS. So if you're worried about weight going to a 2011, it's actually the same weight as a Glock 19, which is pretty neat. All right, we have the C2 here and the CS. I'm gonna lay these on top of each other as best I can here, lining up the slides. So you can see there's a little bit longer slide here. The grip is just a hair longer. And I can demo that. So when I hold the CS, the mag well kind of kisses the bottom of my pinky finger there. And the C2, there's a little more room. So there's really not a whole lot of difference. And let's look at it with the mags. Okay, with the mags in, what's pretty interesting is these are pretty flush. So there's really not any difference, and that makes sense because this is a 16 round magazine and that's a 16 round magazine. So they were able to reduce the width on these. That's how they were able to get a little bit of a grip reduction on the CS. But for capacity, I don't know, length is what it is. So the grip is about the same. Clearly the slide is shorter. By their dimensions, the grip width on the C2 is 1.3 inches and the CS is 1.2. You're not talking very much. I did have a stipple job done on here and it may have reduced that feel just a little bit, but not a whole lot. I could definitely tell the CS grip is a little slimmer. All right, let's look at the size comparison between the CS and a Glock 19. I'm gonna line up the front of the slide so we can see the back here. You have a beaver tail here to the back side of the Glock. It's maybe a hair longer than a Glock 19 is. The grips though are pretty much identical. If I were to line up the grips, it actually looks like the slide on the CS is a little bit shorter and the beaver tail would stick out a little bit more on the back if I were to line up those grips. Let's talk about holsters. This is the holster that Nick sent me. It's LAS concealment. This one is for the CS. Clearly it's going to fit very nicely. This is a tier 1 holster for my C2 and obviously it fits very nicely in that as well. The slide isn't quite as long, so there's a little bit of extra holster right here, but it's gonna work in your C2 holsters just fine. Here's some interesting things. So I grabbed, this is the G code. This is for an M&P 2.0. It actually fits really nice in there. There's a little bit of movement, but this definitely is usable. So this is a Glock 19 magazine from tier 1. It actually goes into that pretty good. I have the retention pretty loose, so it's gonna slide out. But it actually happens to work in this M&P and this Glock 19 magazine. We tried a couple other ones that we had around the shop, and it didn't fit in some of the more form-fitting holsters that we have around the shop. But if you have a little bit looser fit type holster like these, there's a good chance that the CS is going to fit in those holsters. All right, out here at the range, I've got the new Staccato CS, and these are gonna be first mag through. I don't really have a target down range. I'm just gonna shoot, get the feel for it, see how this goes. All right, first impressions. It's got that nice crisp trigger that I'm used to in my Staccatos. I will say I can notice a more noticeable flip. I can feel the recoiling back into my hand a little bit more than I can like in my C2. But overall, super nice, smooth, very manageable. Let's load it back up and we're gonna set up a target and see how that feels. So I got my C2 out, loaded it up. I just wanna shoot this next to that one and see what the feel is. Shooting the giggle switch back there. Show off. So even though the grip length is the same, to me just the C2 feels a little bit more manageable. It's probably that little extra weight and length on the front end of this gun just makes it a little bit more controllable, but let's go set up a target and see how that CS feels and the accuracy and what kind of groups it can hold, maybe next to the C2. I'm admittedly not the greatest bullseye shooter in the world and my hands are freezing, but I thought I would shoot a little group here just to show it. I'm gonna shoot at this circle right here at about 5 yards and we'll see how this goes. I'm also not really sure how well this red dot is zeroed, so I'm gonna hold this a little high and we'll see how this goes. All right, about 10 rounds. I kind of had to walk it in a little bit. Kind of started walking it down in here. Threw a couple here, but I mean, super nice group. Most of these are touching here. You can see I just kind of walked it down. So obviously a Staccato with a bull barrel, this gun's way more accurate than what I'm capable of shooting it to be. I'm gonna shoot my C2 down into this. My goal is just to keep them around here, about the size of a softball, back at I think about 5-7 yards, something like that. Just gonna do some double taps, triple taps, and then we're gonna do the same thing with the CS and the other side and just see if there's any difference. All right. All right, let's go look. Now to try to be fair, I've been shooting my C2 for years and I know that gun really well. The feel of the CS, it's not a whole lot different. I can definitely tell, and I think you're gonna be able to see here, I was able to keep the majority of my C2 shots right here. I threw a couple over here. That was not mine. But most of them I kept right here. The CS, not able to keep quite the same group. Even threw one out here. Not able to keep quite the same group, but I think if we were to look, it's also not an unacceptable group either. Extremely manageable gun, very nice trigger. I mean, it's a Staccato. You aren't gonna go wrong with this gun. All right, let's look at the trigger here. See nice and close. This is the flat trigger, aluminum flat trigger. All the more take up there is about that before it goes bang. And then reset, bang. This is a thing that people love about 1911s and 2011s. You can't beat that trigger. And that's why you can run these guns so fast. That's why, yeah, that's just why it's so easy to shoot these guns so fast. There's so little take up. It's not a super light trigger. They say 4 to 4.5 pounds. So it's not a competition gun trigger, but it's a really nice carry gun. Honestly, I'm not a big fan of super light triggers on a carry gun. So that 4.5 to me is about perfect. When you're shooting it and you're really getting on the trigger and you're trying to double tap, triple tap, that sort of thing, having a little bit of weight on it, to me is a nice thing. The stipple on it has been really nice. There's enough there. It's a nice cool day. My hands aren't sweaty, but there's been a nice amount of grip on this. I really like the texture on it. It's enough to grip, but it's also not gonna be too much where if you're carrying this with a t-shirt, it's gonna eat you up raw. So a few of my thoughts on this gun. I currently either carry the X Macro or the C2. I've established this is my favorite gun, and this is coming up pretty quickly as my favorite carry gun because it's so much slimmer and lighter, and the capacity is actually one more than this guy. However, there's something about, and for you 2011 shooters and 1911 shooters, there's something about shooting in a 1911, 2011 that really a striker-fired gun just can't compare with. There's something about the trigger. There's something about the aluminum frame to it, the recoil impulse on a 2011. There's nothing else quite like it. I have more confidence when I draw this gun out than I do with this. So the question that I had is, where does this gun fall in the realm of carry guns for me? And I'm not sure that where I am right now, it really has a place because I love these guns so much and they fit really well. This to me is an in-between. If I didn't have either of these guns and I'm looking to get into a 2011 carry, I'm absolutely gonna go with this. And I think that's where this gun is gonna lie. If you are looking to get into a 2011 carry, to me this is the choice to pick. It's going to do really well for you at a steel match, USPSA match. It shoots really nicely. And it's going to carry just a little bit nicer than what the C2 does. I really do love this gun. I think it was a great move on Staccato's part to evolve from the C into the CS. That was an obvious help and big jump. About same size, same price, for twice the capacity and a really nice shooting gun. I think Staccato did a fantastic job on this. If you have the money, you're looking to get into a high-end 2011 concealed carry gun, you really can't go wrong with the new Staccato CS.